Class is now in session. I am Professor Hockey, and today we're discussing the game between the Sharks and the Panthers, in which the Sharks lost 4-2. Now 0-2 against the Panthers this season, losing both games in regulation by a combined score of 10-4. So when I said that the Sharks maybe had the Minnesota Wild's number, it's pretty clear that the Panthers seem to have the Sharks' number. Luckily for the Sharks, with the Panthers unlikely to make the playoffs this season, it is extremely unlikely the Sharks will have to face off against the Panthers once more, and so they won't have to deal with the likes of Barkov and Huberdeau again this season. And you know, this game definitely had the potential of being a bit of a trap game. As I said, the Panthers were not a playoff team. The Sharks have been doing a lot of travel lately. Obviously, on Saturday, they were in San Jose. Then they flew over to Minnesota for Monday. They flew over to Winnipeg for Tuesday. And then they had to fly back to San Jose here for Thursday. And so it's the first game back from this small road trip back-to-back. 3 games in 4 nights. I believe it was 5 games in 8 nights. So certainly not easy for the Sharks. But in the first period, they actually came out with an okay effort after they took an early, quote-unquote penalty with the Logan Couture trip that they managed to kill off. The Sharks do get the first goal of this game. This was Melker Karlsson's. And while the Panthers do respond with Jamie McGinnis to tie it up, it's the Sharks getting the lead again with Kevin Labancs. Then going into the second period, the Panthers start to take control of this game. The power plays continue to rack up for them, and they are the second best team on the power play in the entire league. So not a good idea for the Sharks, especially considering how that first game ended up going down against the Panthers. The Sharks getting in penalty troubles in that one as well and getting punished heavily. And while they didn't get super punished in this one, it does end up biting them. After Hunt's goal that made it 2-2, it was Sharks legend Mike Hoffman, and with about a minute or so to go, 2 minutes left in the second period, he gets the goal and he gives the Panthers the lead going into the third period. Sharks in the third period, again, not starting off okay, you could definitely say, but then the Panthers get a solid goal there from Vetrano. They get a 2-goal lead, and while the Sharks do end up pushing after that, it seems to be too little too late, and they never really challenge rookie goaltender Montembeault in the nets with that many great shots. And so the Sharks, sort of an uninspired game, not really too surprising, certainly tired. They were on a 6-game winning streak. You win some, you lose some, I guess you could look at it. But what it does do, however, is leave the Sharks with only a single-point lead over the Calgary Flames for first place in the Pacific Division, and it is the Flames with the game in hand. And so the Sharks, who were previously in control of their own destiny, now sort of pass on that torch to the Calgary Flames if they manage to win. I believe they play tomorrow. First thing to talk about would be Martin Jones, and similar to Aaron Dell's game against the Winnipeg Jets, Jones was okay. I don't think he had much of a chance on the McGinn, the Hoffman, and the Vetrano goal. However, the Hunt goal, I believe Dryden Hunt's goal, just not good at all. Very soft. And I won't say he was outdueled by Montembeault, because I don't think Montembeault had a particularly strong game either. I mean, the goal to Melker Karlsson was probably even softer than the goal to Hunt. But, Jones basically in this game, he gave up 4 goals, similar to how Aaron Dell gave up 4 goals. But in that Winnipeg game, the Sharks scored 5, and so it sort of overshadowed Dell's performance in that one. The Sharks were not able to do that for Jones here tonight. And so in general, not a fantastic game for Martin Jones, but it wasn't horrific. He did make some nice saves, especially on the Sharks' double minor. They took a double minor, high-sticking Jonathan Huberdeau, causing him to bleed, and Jones coming up with 2 huge saves on, I believe, Dadonov and Vetrano, which allowed the game to remain tie, but he couldn't make it on the Mike Hoffman bullet from the point. Next, I will talk about Joakim Ryan. Of course, his first game in a while, coming in for the injured Radim Shemek, who apparently is now having surgery. So it seems extremely unlikely he even gets another game this season. Maybe if the Sharks make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, but honestly, if the Sharks make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, I doubt they're going to actually make a change to put in Shemek. If it was, let's say, Brent Burns coming back from an injury in the Stanley Cup Finals, sure, put him back in. But Radim Shemek, yeah, he's been great for the Sharks, but he isn't some sort of massive impact player. So if, let's say, Joakim Ryan's doing a great job through the first 3 rounds, or a good job through through the first 3 rounds. I doubt Shemek is managing to get his spot back unless Ryan does falter, let's say, in the Stanley Cup Finals. But it was a good game for Ryan. I was quite surprised by that, actually. He got some decent ice time from DeBoer, also surprised by that. And if he can actually continue that performance in these next few games, he may even remain the extra defenseman who stays in the lineup once Erik Karlsson does return, because of the fact that Ryan and Burns is a better defensive pairing most likely than Heed and Burns, even if Heed also had a pretty solid game for himself. But the issue that Ryan has had this season is that lack of consistency, so I'll definitely be interested, especially coming up against these 2 next teams, the Predators and the Golden Knights, how he does perform. Next, I will talk about Brent Burns, and this isn't a mention normally when it comes to Brent Burns of how great he was offensively and how, subpar he was defensively. I think Brent Burns' defensive game has still been quite solid in these past few games, but he does not register a point tonight. This is the first time this season he has not registered a point in 4 games in a row, and anyone who recalls that 2016-2017 season, the season that Brent Burns won the Norris, they'll recall his historic start in the first 3 quarters of the year, but after that really falling off, and that really sort of put a lot of people who were following the Norris race saying, oh, why does Brent Burns win this? I mean, he didn't do that much better than, let's say, Erik Karlsson, mostly because of the fact that Brent Burns really did fall off in that last quarter, and now we're 4 games in a row. Brent Burns does not have a point. He was looking on the way to another historic season of potentially even 90 points. That now seems much further out of reach. I believe he still remains at 73 with these 4 pointless games, so I'd love to see Brent Burns actually get back involved in the offense. The defense has remained solid, but you pay Brent Burns the big bucks so that he can actually get these shots on net, get these assists, and it hasn't really been happening in these past few games, even if the Sharks have managed to win most of them. Finally, I will talk about Evander Kane. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the terrible news of what the personal reasons were for keeping Evander Kane out of the lineup on both Monday, Tuesday, and tonight. I'm sure every Sharks fan feels extremely bad for him. I'm sure every Sharks fan is okay with him sitting out as many games as he needs to. However, DeBoer has said that it's possible Evander Kane will be back in the lineup on Saturday, so definitely a very strong move by him to insert himself so soon after what happened. But that will beg the question of who will come out of the lineup. Finally, we will have to answer that question. Donskoy or Michael Haley. And once again tonight, Donskoy was demoted to the 4th line. While he still got okay minutes, it was over 10 minutes in this one, he did get dropped to the 4th line in favor of Melker Karlsson, who's having a pretty solid game for himself. So it's technically possible Donskoy comes out. However, also Haley, against his former team, only got about 6 minutes. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Obviously, Kane is a player who's more similar to Michael Haley, just a lot more skilled, and so it's not like Haley fills, let's say, some sort of much bigger role than Evander Kane can do. It's not like if LeBanc was coming back in the lineup and you want to keep the toughness of Michael Haley, but also Donskoy hasn't been that great. He's more of a top, a middle 6 forward than he is a 4th liner, so I could definitely see the argument for keeping Michael Haley in. It'll definitely be very interesting to see what DeBoer decides to do. I'm probably leaning towards more that Michael Haley stays in the lineup because I do know how much DeBoer likes him, but I guess it could go either way. That will do it for this review. The Sharks will be back in action on Saturday. They'll face off against the Nashville Predators, who have been struggling actually for the past couple of months. Even with the Jets also struggling, the Predators, I don't believe, have managed to claim the top spot in the Central Division. They currently sit 2nd place because they have sort of just been quite inconsistent. They've had some injuries, certainly, but it looks like we're in for a very good one if we're just judging by the first 2 games the Sharks played against the Predators. Both 5-4 victories for the Sharks. The first one, they came into the 3rd period down 4-2. 3 unanswered goals allowed them to win 5-4 in regulation. And then also the second one, they had a 3-0 lead. Then they were trailing 4-3, I believe, going into the 3rd period before they got 2 unanswered goals quickly, and including Joe Thornton's 400th, to make it 5-4, another victory there. And so we'll see if it ends up 5-4 again, but it's definitely bound to be another exciting matchup against one of the West's better teams. Class dismissed.